It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. And back in the day, Chuck, at about this time of year, you and I would be trying to figure out what issues we'd be bringing up in the fall session of the legislature. And we'd be looking towards the election of 2026. There's a lot of items that didn't make it in the state budget. You got to sort through all those bills and figure out which ones your team wants to highlight before you get a chance to talk to the voters in 26. So what do you think we're going to see in the fall session here of 25?
Well, very little. The whole thing has changed. Everything happens in the budget. It's a partisan document. It has to happen. There's Governor Evers. You have a governor who's in a different spot than the legislature. And unlike the era of Tommy Thompson, where Tommy wanted to get all the votes, so he would sometimes occasionally take a Democratic idea and say, this might be one that I want to adopt. Even some expansion of healthcare and things that I'd give a little credit here to Joe Winnicke, who actually brought that up, and Tommy adopted it, and it worked well for the state of Wisconsin. That's not so much the way things are now. However, let me give some props to Representative Krug, who's running the election side of this. One thing that hopefully will happen is across the country, there are some states, and Wisconsin is one of them, that do not allow votes to be counted the day before the election. And we have lots of votes. We have a lot of mail-in ballots and early voting that people engage in. If we were able to do that, we would get our results for the elections much earlier in Wisconsin. Why? Because you have this huge city, Milwaukee, which has 30, 40, 50,000 votes that they're not allowed to touch until election day. If we were able to let them do that on the day before, we would get earlier results. And to his credit, the Republicans have kind of not allowed this to happen because they like being able to claim, oh, there's something seriously wrong here. Somebody's stuffing the ballot box. Oh, why is this a result not coming in from Milwaukee? Well, there's a simple and honest answer to it. But allowing the first day, a Monday, to be able to count the ballots will allow us to get our results, maybe by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, maybe even a little bit earlier, even on tough days like gubernatorial elections. So Representative Krug, to his credit, has put that in. However, what the Democrats are saying, and this is true, is that he's trying to attach poison pills to that otherwise very bipartisan issue that's out there. So I'm sorry that I'm kind of going down one rabbit hole, but it's a very important matter for the integrity of our election, or the perception of integrity. We have integrity, but for the perception of integrity, this is very important. I give Representative Krug credit for doing this. He's engaged Democrats in the discussion. I hope that they will, if nothing else, pass at least a standalone bill that says, okay, we're going to start counting ballots on Monday. Now, can we do some other things? Sure, but it's got to be done on a bipartisan basis, and I hope they manage to get this done. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that will happen in the fall.
Well, you said the last budget was partisan, or budgets are partisan, but the last budget was bipartisan. And that actually is going to help shape, I think, the elections in 26 in a number of ways. This fall session, I think you will see a mix of a small number of bipartisan issues that are ready. They'll be more ready in the spring. And then issues where the Republicans think they have an advantage with the voters. So on the issues where there's a bipartisan agreement, or it appears to be within reach, you do have Scott Krug's election package. There's a number of changes that should be made besides the early counting of votes the day before. And I think also Senator Pat Teston's age 21 for buying intoxicating THC products at convenience stores. I mean, right now people like 16-year-olds are buying that stuff. That's a pretty powerful thing that they're drinking there. So I think that there will be agreement on a couple of bipartisan things like that. And then there'll be a number of issues where Republicans think they have the issue advantage with the voters, like on affordability issues. There are a lot of people out there who are struggling. They're working hard. They're doing overtime, and then the government's taking money out of that paycheck. The reason they volunteer to do overtime is because they want that money. They need that money in order to pay the bills. There are people working for tips out there. Why are we taxing tips when the federal government's not taxing tips? Retirement income, they made some steps on it in the state budget, but a lot of people make more than $48,000 a year in retirement, and we're losing too many good people, grandmas and grandpas, who are important to our communities here in Wisconsin to other states because we're a high tax state with regards to retirement income compared to other places. A lot of places don't even have income taxes anymore. So I think you're going to see a mix of those issues where Republicans think they have an advantage, and then some bipartisan issues that are close to being baked. And I think that you'll see some more of those in the spring session as well.
I think that if the Republicans really wanted to make things more affordable, they would have spent some money on property tax relief for people in K-12 education, and they refused to spend a dime on it. Out of the annual increase that's there for $325 per pupil, the Republicans refused to pay for a dime of that. And the state needs to step up with its fair share. And the reason that people don't have enough money in their pocket is because the home that they have, the property taxes for schools keep going up because local school districts have to constantly go to referendum, even to keep up operational costs. And this is not just in big cities. This is all across the state. It's outrageous. And I think that that's going to be a vulnerability for Republicans. And if they decide to pursue their tax objectives again in this fall and spring, I hope Democrats will respond with, let's put some money into property tax relief for our schools, because what they're doing is starving public education. It's hurting us. It's dragged us down nationally in terms of what we're paying teachers, what we're paying per pupil. It's something that really ought to be done. But I don't think that's going to be where the real action is going to be in the tax issue. Yes, Republicans will try to pass something so that the governor has to veto it so they can say, oh, they wouldn't give you yet another tax break that doesn't bring down your property taxes. I really think what's going to happen, I hope, is that Republicans see that this is going to be a nasty year for them next year. And they're going to think that maybe what Representative Krug is doing is smart, which is to tone down the rhetoric and pass some things that can be passed on a bipartisan basis, instead of constantly looking like the party of anger, which Robin Vos does, even though he's in the majority. I think that that's where we're likely to head. And I hope that's Representative Krug and a couple of bipartisan things, like with Senator Teston, may actually rule the day for the legislature. But guess what? There's not going to be a lot that's going to happen between the fall and the spring. There's an old story in the Capitol, an old lie. There's 1,000 ways to kill a bill and only one way to pass it. And we're in that category, and there's no budget to be passed. That's where we're likely to end up this fall and this spring.
I think the Republicans are going to end up running on a bipartisan budget and a whole bunch of other bipartisan bills next year.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.